I am just constantly amazed at how much better people that I work with are at things that I am. So I've been working on some stuff and I've been trying to figure out some marketing materials for one of the things that I do. And I was beating my head against the wall. I made a couple of stabs at it. I used some chat GPT, but it didn't come out really that great. And I've been like looking at it and trying to figure it out. And then a friend of mine who I work with on a lot of stuff, he doesn't do what I do, but he's in marketing. He wrote up a document for my site and it was just perfect. And I was like, man, how is the people always better at stuff than I am? But that's okay because we work together, so I appreciate him taking care of that. So if you're on my email list, you'll see that document. It's about me, but it wasn't by me, so just keep that in mind. Not everything needs to be done by you is my motto. So I was going to talk a little bit about my site and what it does for other people and how I got there. So my site, I think, solves problems, and there are a lot of people who do use it. I wouldn't say, there ain't a million people who use it, but there are quite a few people who use it, and they say it works good, so they'll publicize that they use it, tell other people about it. So that's why I get a lot of traffic there. And it's a pretty new site. It's only been around for a couple of weeks, but the traffic's doing pretty neat for a brand new site. I'm happy with it. So what does it do? So I started a couple of years ago to attempt to grow my wife's clothing brand. And I was a full-time New York City fireman, and she didn't have a lot of budget for marketing, so she hired me because I was free. And then I would be busy because I was working in the New York City Fire Department at the time. It was a lot of overtime. So sometimes I'd be working, we do 48 hours a week, 2 24-hour shifts. So I would have some free time to get stuff done. But then they would call me for overtime. So I'd end up working, I think one month I worked 250 hours of overtime, plus my 48 times 4. So that's a lot of hours. So I was just busy. So what I would do is I would whip out my phone. I'd be getting on the fire truck, get up there, do my job, run back home, and I'd be like, man, I was trying to do 2 minutes worth of work, but I'm not getting anything done. Let me go on Fiverr. So the guys would sit down for dinner, and I would sit there, and I would just hop on my phone and find somebody on Fiverr to do something instead of me doing it. And my wife had given me a little bit of budget. It wasn't much money, but I would go there every week and I would spend a little bit of money. And I got pretty good at finding people. And things were kind of swinging a little bit, and I was doing pretty neat. I like to take credit for it, but to be honest with you, I didn't really do any work. But I did read the 4-Hour Work Week, and he kind of set that strategy out for me a long time ago. And I was working about 400 hours a month, maybe 500 hours a month at the time between overtime and everything else. And I had a real estate business too. And so Fiverr saved me a lot. And then as time went on, the people I worked with didn't really love Fiverr too much because of the time difference. Most of the people were working in Fiverr in the Asia or the Middle East or Philippines or wherever. I mean, I worked with people in so many different countries. So they would always try to get me to come back to the United States, and I'd hire people in the United States once in a while. But I kept a lot of my work over there in Asia or the Middle East or, just wherever, Southeast Asia. And as time went on, the company got bigger and bigger and budgets got bigger and bigger. And eventually I started doing stuff in Eastern Europe. I found that I liked a lot of people in Eastern Europe and Australia. And so I just had this big international team, and I eventually retired from the New York City Fire Department. I retired a little bit early because we were so busy, and we wanted to move to Florida. So I retired a little early, but we got busy with the marketing stuff, and I would start to do some stuff myself, and I'll find out I was disappointing myself because my work kind of sucks. So I got back into doing the same thing I did before. I just started outsourcing everything. And eventually I would just be sitting by the pool over here, be barbecuing, making steaks and stuff, hanging out with the dog. Dog's right here. See the dog? Where is she? And I would be just outsourcing a bunch of stuff, managing a bunch of people. My budget goes really far because, I got people all over the world. And then, at one point they were like, hey, let's hire an agency, big agency. This is going to be great. $15,000, $25,000 a month. We had a good budget, so it was no problem. We were doing 7 figures a month by now. And We hired agencies to do stuff in the United States. I was not happy. I was disappointed, severely disappointed by their work. The agency's getting paid 5 figures a month, and they suck. They just suck. And I would just be telling these guys who all over Twitter and big agency types, well-dressed, nice profiles, LinkedIn, everybody's saying how great they are. I got 200 followers on Twitter. They got 5,000. I'm running a company doing millions of dollars a month in sales and using guys off of Fiverr to do it. I'm like, you guys suck. So I started keeping lists. I mean, actually, I've been keeping a list for a long time, but I started keeping longer lists. And so every time I would need something, instead of getting these agencies, I actually opted out of those agencies. I went back to my old people, and they were happy to have me back because I like to work with those guys. You know, there's not a lot of pressure. I just tell them to do something, and they get back to me a couple of days later, like it's done. Create some flows in Klaviyo. A couple of days later, 1 or 2 flows are done. Maybe in a month, they got 30 flow emails done, maybe more. Tell them to do a campaign email, 48 hours is done. No big deal. So, you know, Facebook ads, tell them to run some Facebook ads. Tell them to do some conversion rate optimization. That's it. Just keep giving them work. Keep giving them work. And they give it back to me. Not a lot of management. I just give them work and they just do it. You know, I of course would look back at performance, and I would sometimes feedback and say, hey, you know, some of the stuff you're doing is not working. Let's try this. And the good thing is because they like to work a lot, we'd always be getting more work. And I just kept doing that. And I kept keeping my list. And eventually people started asking me, man, how are you guys growing? Because I would post about my growth. I'll post about the growth that I was having over there. And people would be like, man, how are you growing so fast? You were doing only 6 figures a month a couple of months ago. Now you're doing 7 figures. And I'm like, yep. And now we ain't doing in the ones anymore either. So, you know, I just kept doing that. And people would ask me for that list. So that list became unmanageable at one point. I mean, I had 130 people on one spreadsheet. It was ridiculous. You know, so what I did was I ended up separating it out to different spreadsheets. So somebody would say, do you have a Facebook ads freelancer who could create ads, or somebody who could run media ads? So I had one sheet of Google Sheets full of just freelancers for Facebook ads. And somebody else would be like, do you have a Google ads, you know, somebody who uploads Google manually? You know, they'll fix your data feed watch and make it manually optimized. Do you have something like that? I'd be like, yeah, they're in the Google ad sheet. You just look in there, you'll see manual optimization in that one column. Oh, okay, cool. People would take that. And somebody else would come in and be like, do you have a conversion rate guy, or a UX guy, or a developer? And I was like, yeah, that's on this sheet over here. So eventually I put all the sheets onto one sheet, and it just grew and grew to the point where there was 24, 25 sheets. Some of the sheets had 23, 24, 25 people on it. Then I started keeping a tech stack of all the tech I was using, because people would say to me, you know, what are you using for apps? And I'd be like, well, we're using Loop for returns. I think at the time we were using Returnly when I first created, but we're using Returnly for returns back in the day. We're using Judge Me for reviews. We're using Shopify, Klaviyo. And then they would say, well, what else are you using? We're using this back in stock tool. You know, we're using this Lifetimely. The guy, Sean from the 9 operators, he mentioned Lifetimely one time, so I uploaded that. I get a lot of use out of that. So my tech stack just grew and grew. And, you know, and I would be like, some of the stuff you couldn't do without. You know, for instance, Judge Me. I love that tool. And then Upstackified, Mike came around. You know, well, way before he came around, I tried out. The first of those tools that I tried out was Blot Out, the Cappy tools, I call them. Then I tried Retention. I was with Retention for quite a while, but I got my spam rate kind of went through the roof at one point, so I got rid of it. I don't necessarily think it was Retention, but I figured better safe than sorry. Our list grew pretty quick. We don't really need any extra list. And then I tried Black Crow AI, and then eventually I ran across this dude, Michael from Upstackified, and his tool, just like the rest of those tools, it ain't any better, but it's about a quarter the price. So I ended up opting onto his. I got rid of the other ones. And, you know, one thing I'll tell you is, by the way, is when you sign up to these SaaS products, make sure they don't sign you up for anything more than 3 months. 3 months with a 38-day opt-out after that, okay? No long-term contracts. Enough about the contracts, but just do that if you're smart, like me. So basically, the reason I'm saying this is somebody just asked me about the list. How did it form? How did I come up with the idea? What's the purpose? Explain it to people what the purpose is. So the purpose of the list is to make it easy for somebody else who is like me to come into e-com and start their brand at $50 a day advertising on Facebook with 2 or 3 or 4 products, and to grow that brand to 2-3 million a month in revenues. That's the purpose of my list. It's to take you from spending 1,000 or 1,500 to get your site started up to the point where you can afford spit it out. You can afford to spend 500 grand a month on marketing. That's the purpose of my list. It's to take you from zero to $500,000 a month in budget so that you could do what you want to do with that money. That's why I made it. It's plain and simple. The only reason I made it like that is so that you could do exactly what I did. So you're looking at that list, you're wondering, what is it? Well, it's because if somebody like me comes around, I want him to find that list and be able to grow his company to 8 figures monthly, 9 figures monthly, and so on. And I didn't get to the 8 figures monthly yet. I'm gonna get there this year, for sure, but I'm not there yet. But the reason I did it is that. So just so you know, if you're watching this video, if you're one of those guys like me who was working in some industry that was hard work, not e-com, and you're not grasping this digital marketing very easily, you don't have to. There are people out there that are experts at it. You just have to manage them. First you have to find them, then you have to put them to work. You set over everything, take some KPIs, you steer the ship. You watch all the numbers, make sure everything goes smooth, and you let all these people work for you, and they'll make your company get big like the company that I run. So that's all I got to say about the list tonight. I'm glad you guys are over here listening to an old man talk. And hopefully, if you need something, you can take a look at the dtcmkg.com.